Hello again, small scale collectors and 3D print fans. So we have another variety of vehicles. Well, we'll just start off with these construction vehicles. This is called a Brown Bear 400 tractor, and it has an auger. So this thing, I believe, must rotate or something, and that auger digs into the ground like a hole or something like that. It's a tractor. It has different front end attachments, but this is what's going on with this guy. And just a note, you can buy a bigger scale, 164 and larger, from Shapeways user Foster Racing. So you can contact him. But anything smaller than that, you can buy them off Shapeways if you want. Okay, this next one is very similar looking, but it's actually different. Here's a little comparison. That's a Rollba 3000 snowblower. So that actually obviously blows snow off the roads and whatnot in probably Europe, I assume. I'm not sure where Rolba is from. Okay, that's it for that. Very small amount of airplane related stuff today. This is an aircraft deck carrier for the Russian military. This is a KAMAZ 3. Sorry, I got choked up there. This is a KAMAZ 39131 10-ton deck tractor. So I'm pretty sure this is what you would find on the Russian aircraft carriers. Or maybe just on regular ground bases as well. Alright. Now, quite larger. This is a special cargo lift for the Beluga aircraft. The Beluga is like this really, well, it looks like a beluga whale. That's why it's called that. But it's a very large cargo airplane. And so this lift is meant to, just lift up the whole load, whether it be a helicopter or part of a space station or something like that. And obviously, if you can look at that blue Range Rover there, it's a big vehicle in real life. It actually has a bunch of powered wheels that rotate. All those bogies with wheels spin, so this thing could move sideways if it wanted to, that kind of thing. So that's an interesting one. Okay, let's do a little sci-fi stuff, or things that aren't quite real. Although this is a Scooby-Doo mystery van. So I just went off of some drawings and stuff like that and guessed how big it should be. I'm not even sure if I could find published dimensions, but that's what I assumed if a human being would enter the doorway, the size of the vehicle would be. Okay. Well, not sure if you guys recognize this Batmobile, but it's from the animated series. I just really like the styling of it. It's so long and sleek, but the cockpit is so small, meaning this would probably have to be a really big vehicle. But I'm not sure. I just modeled it so it looks like maybe one person could fit in the middle there, Batman. But I believe Batman would have two people. Well, anyways, couldn't find published dimensions, so I wanted it to be, somewhat realistic in comparison to that Range Rover. But maybe it would actually be bigger. But if it was too much bigger, it'd be too wide to fit on a road. So that's the way I sized it right there for 1/400. Okay, let's go with the Star Trek Galileo shuttlecraft. This is from the 5th movie, and we're talking about the movies with William Shatner. So the original set of movies, and this is one of the shuttles from that. Okay, 2 more sci-fis coming up. We got the land speeder from Solo. This is the movie about Han Solo's youth. When Han Solo was young, there's some sort of chase scene, and this was his speeder in that movie. Okay, quite larger in the Star Wars realm. I'll just see if I can fit this on here. This is from Star Wars Rebels. So Star Wars Rebels is an animation Star Wars. And this is called the Ghost 2. No, I'm sorry. This is called the Phantom 2. And so I believe this thing is actually mated to the main ship, which might be called the Ghost. But this is like kind of like a shuttle, but it's obviously still quite large compared to the vehicles below it. So we're talking spaceships, of course, so they're quite big. All right, let's get those guys out of here. The last videos, well, the last subjects for today's video are some conceptual tanks and some World War I tanks. So, you know, stuff that is either really old or never existed at all. This first one is a US design. Let me get the angle back down here. Actually, let me get these models out of the way. Kind of distracting. This is called a Best CLB 75 track layer. It's from 1917, and I believe they just took a farm tractor and put the hull of a boat upside down on it, and then put a turret on top. So it obviously never became. I think they actually used it for recruitment purposes. They had some. You can look it up. There's some black and white images of like troops in front of it trying to recruit people for the war effort and stuff like that. Okay. This next one also might be a US design, but correct me if I'm wrong, maybe it's British. It's called a Holt steam wheel tank, and this is from 1918. So it's obviously steam powered, which would explain why that fuselage or the chassis is so big, and then it literally has big steel wheels. I imagine those rear wheels would be absolutely useless. It would just dig into the mud and stuff and drag, so I don't think this ever took off either. But it did exist. You can look up images of it. Okay, this next one is called a Whippet tank. Whip it good. And this is a tank from World War I. So I don't know what country made these, but I guess it was in active service. All right. This next one is by Fiat. So, you know, think about the car company. So this is the Fiat 2000, and this is also a World War I tank. It's funny, it just looks like a small room with guns sticking out each side, and I seem to have forgotten to paint one of them. Oh well. And then that little dome turret moves around, and yeah, interesting. Pretty big. Okay, what's this next one here? So this guy is called a Little Willie tank, and it's also from World War I. I assume it's, well, I don't know what country it's from. It's a country that probably speaks English, being called Little Willie. You have a good sense of humor too, so maybe it's British. But please leave a comment if you know. I do not. All right, this next one was an active tank. A little small tank called the French FT-17 or FT-17. I believe it must have been a scout tank, or, you know, this is the early days of French tank development, so it's quite small. I mean, just look at that classic Range Rover, it's around the same size. So I imagine it probably got blown to bits, you know, by some sort of anti-tank guns. Alright, much bigger. This is a Char FCM-2C, and this is a tank that bridged World War I and World War II, somewhere in that gap. But I think it might be French also. So obviously it's a big advancement from the previous little guy. I believe this little thing in the back is also a turret, but I may have left off the actual barrel because it's too small to print. And then you'll have to excuse me, but I can't remember where Tatra is from. I know Tatra makes commercial trucks, but this is called the T-18 Armored Draisine Train. So it's a very tiny armored train. It runs on the tracks of railroads, and obviously it's armored. I think maybe the turret on the top would spin around and maybe have machine guns sticking out of it, but again, I can't model such small guns. so it's smaller than an SUV. Okay, 2 more to go, and this one's a little bit wacky. So this guy is called the Tumbleweed Tank Concept. I believe this is a U.S. proposal. It was on like the cover of Popular Mechanics or something like that a long time ago. And so we're talking around like World War I or World War II, somewhere in the early 1900s. And there's supposed to be one person inside of this thing, and the entire thing spins. That's why it has ribs on it for traction. And then there'd be 2 machine guns right there in the front horizontally, and one pointing to the sky. And then 2 guns on the sides, these little side pods. But obviously it never became a real tank, because I don't even understand how someone would get inside of that tank, and then what keeps it balanced. There were no segways back then, right? So anyways, I also couldn't find any published dimensions, so I just assumed this would be based off the height of a human being, maybe sitting inside of it or at least getting into it. So this is the size I came up with. Alright, the last one, quite ridiculous, is a sci-fi vehicle from H.G. Wells. So H.G. Wells, the popular writer, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and many other books. I think that The Time Machine. So he had this idea of a land ironclad, it's called, and it's supposed to be just this giant vehicle with walking legs on rotary wheels. I modeled this to be 17.5 meters long, which is why it's so huge. That's just some dimension I found online. I don't know. This is a sci-fi vehicle, technically, and so on the bottom of this guy, it has these 8 wheels, and each one of these wheels contains a bunch of feet. So those feet eventually rotate down to be horizontal, and 3 of them would touch the ground, and it would move. Unfortunately, I knocked 2 of them off, either painting it or cleaning it. My clumsiness. I have since reinforced the design to make those feet very durable. And then these 3 sets of holes that you see here, along the side, those would be guns sticking out of it. But again, I can't model guns so thin or small. I don't even know which side would be the front. I assume this side, because I assume these things on the top are windows, and these are smokestacks for like a big steam engine. Maybe this is a hatch or a turret. So there's almost no images of this thing, so I had to just make up a bunch of things myself. Alright. Well, I actually arranged these in a relatively decent order this time around, so no need to pause. So yeah, it was an interesting mix today. I do like concepts and sci-fi stuff, so that's why I made these. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and yeah, if anyone has any ideas for subjects, I might make them. I don't really care if you buy them or not. I just want to have cool stuff in my collection, but I will make them available. All these are available on Shapeways, but that place is expensive, so keep that in mind. This is a hobby. I guess hobbies are just a waste of money in general, so there's the reference again, a penny. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.